So hey guys, and welcome to another episode of MGC. Today I've got two generations of a Land Cruiser. I've got the Land Cruiser 100 series on my left and the Land Cruiser 200 series on my right. And today we wanted to look at the two of them right up front, look at the differences and see why someone would pick a 100 series over a 200 series or the 200 series over the 100 series. So I hope you guys enjoy. If you do, hit like, subscribe, comment down below and enjoy. Alright, so it's a beautiful hot day in Kenya. We just wanted to start off, wanted to put these two right side by side next to each other so you can see. Now we know this was the 2012 facelift that they did for the 200 series. The 200 series has ran for a long time, 2008 all the way up to the current generation 2020 and the 2020 Heritage Edition. So the 200 series has ran for a longer period of time than the 100 series. The 100 series went from 1998 all the way up to 2007. So we have about 9 years there, and the 200 series went from 2008 all the way up to 2020. So we have 12 years there. So a longer generation where they revised it and they updated this as the 2012 design. So before the 2012, when it was the 2008 design, you got a full halogen light here, and this bumper was also different. You had halogen fog lamps, but these are now LEDs. Also the grille changed. This piece was down here. They basically switched it over, but apart from that, the 2012 facelift didn't change anything else. Here you have the 100 series, which had the classic sort of bumper. Basically the way they did this design is that the bumper would be attached to this piece of the body here, whereas with the 200 series they went to sort of that German engineering where you have a slit where the bumper attaches to the rest of the body. So it's a sort of a more uniform design. It doesn't look like you've got an entire separate piece here. It's supposed to look like a one-piece design. Now I'm not sure that really affects me or bothers me. In fact, I would think this bumper with the wide sort of fog lamps and sort of looks like a more elegant look to me, but I don't really mind, because I also believe that this 200 series with these particular headlights of 2012 look really mean, look really imposing. So I'm a big fan of this headlight. Now I know in 2016 of course you got the revision of the headlights where it became even thinner, and that also is a gorgeous design, but I think you'd agree with me that this looks pretty good. You wouldn't necessarily complain. Now with the 100 series, this is usually of course one headlight, but we know that this is a Cygnus, so you've got the dual headlights, basically the LX470 style, and I think that's a very elegant look. It's aged just so well. We're here in 2020 and still this design looks new, still turns heads. If we continue with these guys over here so that you can see the edges of the front of the vehicle, I'm glad that they retained it. I know if you're in the UK you don't get these for some reason, but these help me a lot, so I'm glad that they're there. Now if we come to what they did with 100 series to 200 series, the 100 series had better approach and departure angles. This is just slightly lower and this is just slightly higher. Now granted, with the Cygnus, when you turn the car off, it just lowers the front for you a bit so you can get out of the vehicle a bit easier, because it's a hydraulic system. So this might appear a bit lower than this, but when this car is turned on, you've got better clearance, and of course you've got the hydraulic system where you can put it in high mode and get up to 2 inches more of ground clearance. It really does sit up quite high. Now if we move on from there, coming from 100 series to 200 series, the 100 series was a very refined generation as it is, and that's why it had such a cult following. So many people loved it because it was so well built, and it was following up on the ultimate SUV ever built, which was the 80 series. So the 80 series, so many of them are still going around today because of just how good they are. But granted, I would say the 80 series, the interior was slightly lacking, It had too much plastic. You could go for the LX version and get some amazing leather, but still the overall design was a bit primitive. And when you come to the 100 series, it's like a breath of fresh air. Now granted, the earlier models of the 100 series until 2002, they had that previous interior, and I will be showing you one of those models in a future video. I do have that video lined up for you guys. But from the 2003 generation of the 100 series, it was a very refreshing interior design. And when you came to the 200 series, you got a good interior, but it was a bit more blocky and a bit more usage of this plastic sort of vinyl, as you see. So when I first got into a 200 series from my 100 series, I liked it. I did like it, but I felt like there was not the same amount of knee room, because I'm about 6'1", and in my Cygnus I never have an issue. When I sit on my chair, I've got acres of room when my knees are sat up like this. But when I got in the 200 series, I realized that my knee was touching against that sort of gray part that they have because of the interior. It sort of sits up at you, and so I wasn't so happy with that. But the revisions that they did do, if we look at the technical specs, when you go from 100 series to 200 series, this cabin was shortened. In fact, if I stand right here, I can see that we've got a bigger engine bay here than here. And that's because they were able to use this same 2UZ FE motor for the 200 series, but they did modifications to it in a way that they could fit it in a smaller area. And so what you got was a smaller engine bay, and so a larger cabin area, which is interesting. But I'm still also very much a fan of a larger engine bay, because you know there's a V8 sitting in front of you. It better take up some room. I don't know, that's how I think. But so that doesn't really affect me, because anyways, the cabin space I felt in the 100 series was adequate. I would say maybe in the rear seats there is more cabin space in the 200. So if you're fitting up to 8 passengers, you're going to be more spacious in the 200. But these vehicles are very similar in size. They're just about parked at the same level. And honestly, it looks like the 100 is a bit taller. Let me just check that out. Okay, my mistake. 200 series is maybe 1 inch longer at the rear. Coming from 100 series to 200 series, another thing you got was a bit wider and a bit longer. So you're dealing with a slightly larger vehicle. But apart from that, it's not really going to affect you. Now if we look at the windscreens, the 200 series windscreen seems to be a bit more slanted than the 100 series. The 100 series just seems to be a bit more squarish. Now, in terms of features, you're not going to really go too different from 100 series to 200 series. So if you're someone looking to buy a 200 series in Kenya, you do know that 100 series are fetching, the 2006 and 2007 versions are fetching the same value as the 2008 and 2009 200 series versions. And that specific fact right there is to do with demand and willingness of the buyer. And why are these 2006 and 07 100 series retaining so much value is because people like them, because they are tried and tested, because we know the 2UZ FE in the exact motor in here has done 1 million miles in several vehicles, and we know the durability of the 100 series. But if we talk about features, the only extras you're going to get, because here you got the AHC hydraulic system, which works really well, is reliable, and if it ever gives you an issue, you can just swap it out for the traditional setup. Now with the 200 series, if you go for a ZX version, you'll get the same AHC system, and if you go for an LX570, you'll get the same AHC system. But this one has standard coils all around, which is good, because it's not really an issue. But what I would mention in terms of features is you do get, of course, the crawl control on the 200 series. Now, are you someone that is going to use crawl control a lot? That is up to you. Crawl control would be useful in scenarios where maybe you're going on a steep downhill and you need some assistance. You can turn on the crawl control and you can choose a speed and it'll just take you down nice and slow. Or if you're ascending something, it's a rocky terrain, or slippery terrain, crawl control is quite useful. It's a nice feature to have. Of course, with this 200 series, you do get some other items like Bluetooth as standard. You get a bigger touchscreen, you know, a bit more modernized. So you get a 10-inch touchscreen here, whereas in the Cygnus you had a smaller display. But in terms of material choices, I would say that I'm still more leaning towards the Cygnus. But if you compare a traditional 100 series with a 200 series, the materials in the 200 series are nicer. The center console, you can get a choice of either the dark wood or the lighter wood. And the AC vents are also covered in a silver finish. The steering wheel is your typical wood, and the door panels do have leather. Now, if you go for a Cygnus variant, you're going to get better leather on the door panels, and you're going to get wood trim on the center console and also down below. Now, I would mention the Cygnus does have a storage box, not a storage box, but a fridge. Now, if you want the fridge option, you would have to go for the ZX version of the 200 series. But apart from that, they share the same features. So you're getting the same feature set, if I'm very honest, okay? Maybe, according to Toyota, they stiffened the chassis of the 200 series by like 30–40%. So you're getting a stronger frame here, but I really don't think the 100 series had any issues of being a weaker frame. So you could say that that is the one advantage of buying this, but also you do get another hydraulic system with the 200 series, which you might want to consider. It's the kinetic dynamic suspension system, the KDSS. Now, KDSS was developed in Australia, and we know Australia, they do a lot of off-roading. Toyota Australia makes a lot of decisions for Toyota Global in terms of Land Cruisers, because they sell so many Land Cruisers in Australia and because they test them there. So KDSS, what it does, simple hydraulic system, not something you have to do maintenance on, so just like the AHC system here. And what it does is it's able to automatically disconnect your rear sway bar. So if you're going over some rugged terrain, the car can hydraulically just disconnect the sway bar so that the back end can just be left looser a bit, and it feels a bit smoother when you're going off-road. And I have tested that. And if we come straight up to ride comparisons, this car is running AHC, so it's smoother. That's definite. I'll just say that straight up. This particular one is not running AHC, but it's running standard coils. But what I will say is with the additions and the changes they made to the suspension of the 200 series, it feels really smooth. It rides like a dream, it really does. This particular one has been put on 20-inch rims, and that destroyed a bit of the ride quality. But I've driven 200 series on the stock rims. It feels very smooth. It's a very nice car to drive. It feels solid, but straight up from my intuition, what I can tell you is the 100 series, when I'm on the steering wheel, when I'm on a highway, when I'm on 100 or 120 kilometers an hour, I feel more stable here. With the 200 series, I feel like there's movement in the steering wheel, and that it feels a bit agitated on the road. It feels like, you know, it's like a rabbit. It's not so still. It wants to move around a bit. So that's one thing you might want to consider when going from 100 series to 200 series. If you want that stable ride, go for the AHC version of the 200 series, which will be the ZX. The top spec version is known as the ZX. But if you're okay with standard coils, I will say it is quite smooth, and it's not something you're gonna be really upset about. So for some reason we just have a stupid amount of vehicles making noise and passing outside, so forgive me for that. But apart from those features we've covered, if you're going to talk about comfort, you're going to be comfortable in both these vehicles, no doubt about it. Feature sets are going to be just fine. With the 200 series, you get a front camera, you get one more camera on that driver's side window mirror. So that's something you want to consider. If you like camera setups, the 200 series, it offers you that, and so you can maneuver the vehicle a bit more. And if you go to the 2016 versions, you get a lot more safety features, which you might want to consider. Now, with increased safety features and increased other systems in the 200 series, what you're going to see is you have a bit more electric components, which sometimes spaz out. So I've seen 200 series with 60-70,000 kilometers. Sometimes you get a bit of an electrical malfunction, and all the lights in the speedometer can light up even though there's nothing wrong with the vehicle. And these are just electrical gremlins that, as these cars get more modern, you might have a few more of those, but I wouldn't say it affects the brand name at all. It's still a Land Cruiser. Toyota have still built this to be very reliable. I have seen 200 series. What tends to happen at 100,000 kilometers is the shocks. The shocks start leaking, and that can happen with any vehicle. So it's something you have to consider. You'll have to replace the shocks over a 10-year period. It's not a big deal. In terms of looks, that you'll have to decide for yourself which one of these you would want to go for. But I will say this, guys, to round this off, whichever one of these you do go for, you're gonna be happy. And it depends on your budget and your need, and eventually at the end of the day you're buying a Land Cruiser. So I didn't do this video to specifically say one is better than another. I just wanted to give you a variation of the two and what one offers you and what the other offers you. The rest you can decide by yourself. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. It's been another episode of Masai Gains on cars, pumping out more videos to you guys. And so if you enjoyed, hit like, subscribe, comment down below. It's been Masai Gains checking out.